Okay, here we have Norm 2. Norm 2 because he is the second incarnation of Norm. The first Norm was built out of PVC pipe, wire, and the Bucky skull you see here. That's the only part of the original Norm that made it into Norm 2. Norm 2 is actually a Bucky skeleton, a full-size, anatomically correct, more or less, skeleton from the Anatomical Chart Company. Stands about 5 feet 6 inches tall if he were able to stand on his own. Now, as I said, the Bucky skull here, this is a talking Bucky skull. I actually purchased it as a kit from Calacious. They also have a motion sensor available for it, which is installed in his nose. I don't know how well you can see this here. Back up just a little bit. You can see that little glint back there in the back.
When something tickles its
that is the motion sensor, and obviously because the camera's right in front of it, it's picking it up now. And as you can see, when the motion sensor sees motion,
why didn't the skeleton dance at the party?
Norm
he
talks.
He has no body to dance with.
Now, his eyes, you notice as he talks, his eyes also flash. The original kit just comes with a pair of LEDs, a pair of red LEDs that you're supposed to just stick into the eye sockets. I bought the ping pong eyeballs you see here, carefully drilled them out, hot glued the LED into the back of it, and then proceeded to hot glue the eyes into the sockets. All of the wiring for Norm 2, for the stuff in the skull, which was just a servo motor and the two LEDs, comes out in a cable. It comes out the hole I drilled through the back of the skull, runs down the back of the spine where it's wire tied in place. Down here you can see the speaker that the sound comes out of when Norm speaks. The wire for that also runs down along the back of the spine and is tie wrapped in place as well. So we can get around back here and show you a view of that. You see the blue and the black wires there that run all the way down to just behind the pelvic bone here. Those wires connect to this. This is the project box into which I installed the various parts, electronic boards, that make up Norm. So in there is a sound board that has an ISD chip on it that has the sayings that Norm is speaking. There's also a Scary Terry audio servo driver board that's used to make the servo work. Let's open them up and take a look at Norm's brains and Norm's guts. Okay, here we have Norm's brains. The board on the right is the audio board that has the ISD chipcorder chip on it. This connector you see down here is for the motion sensor. This is the speaker output from the board. Comes over to this jack here that the speaker wire is plugged into. This jack here is the line output from the board. Goes over here to the line input on the servo driver board, which is this one here. This is a line output from the servo driver board, which comes out to another jack here. So if I wanted to feed the speech into a separate amplifier, I could do so. I would like to add another jack that actually splits this connection. And normally if there's nothing plugged in, the connection would be exactly as it is here, but if something's plugged in, that audio would be fed into the servo board instead of the audio coming from the ISD chipcorder board. And over here is an RJ45 jack that I have on the end. That's what the skull plugs into, just a regular network cable end there. Of course, a power connector here, and you see the wiring here for the power goes over to the ISD board and comes over here onto the servo driver board. And this ribbon cable here is the servo output cable. All of that, the servo output cable, the cable here from the motion sensor, and this cable here is what does the flashing of the eyes. All of those feed into this jack and then through this blue cable up Norm's spine and into his skull, which we'll take a look at in just a moment. Okay, as you can hear, Norm's still chattering away, but here you can see the inside of the skull. In the back here, you can almost see where the cable comes in. course, he's going to keep chattering.
When
Here's
does
the
the skeleton
cable
laugh?
coming up from the control
When something
box.
tickles its
The two
funny
black
bone.
wires here go out to the eyes. You can kind of see one going into the back of the eye socket there. There's another one underneath the servo. There's the servo that actually makes Norm move, makes his jaw move. And that's that little squeaky type sound that you hear when it's
What does a
when he's
skeleton
talking.
order at
There
a
it goes.
restaurant? Spare ribs.
It's getting a little hung up here because Norm's head is kind of heavy and
instrument do
wants to
skeletons
roll to the
play?
side.
The
So as you can see, it makes his
trombone.
jaw kind of gets hung up on his chest and doesn't work all
How
that
can you
well.
tell when a vampire has been in a bakery? All the jelly
The
is stuck down
metal
to
rod
the
here
nut.
is what actually holds the skull on. There's a nut that
How
goes
does a
on
girl
there
vampire flirt?
and holds the
She
top of
has
the
her
skull on.
eyes.
There's the hole. You can see it. The rod comes up through. And there we have the skull cap back on. Now the Bucky skeleton is actually made to be hung, hence the little hanger here. I want to get a regular nylon insert lock nut to replace this whole assembly because I really don't have much need to hang them except for when I store them. So when I have them displayed, I'm going to want to put a nut on it. I'll probably keep this handy though so I can use that to store them. I may even just drop it inside the skull when I put the nylon cap nut on, that way it doesn't get lost. But there you have Norm the talking skeleton. Say something, Norm.
What has webbed feet, feathered, fangs, and goes quack quack? Count Duckula.
Okay, so Norm tells really corny Halloween jokes. That's something I recorded last year for him. Last year was the first incarnation of this version of Norm. But there you have it. There is Norm 2.